Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On July 8th of this year, the Chicago Transit Board office noticed a changed format for its July 15th, 2020 Chicago Transit Board and Committee meetings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Governor J.B. Pritzker's executive order prohibiting public gatherings in excess of 10 individuals means that Chicago Transit meetings occurring on July 15th, 2020 will take place only electronically. We will now begin the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Silva, you may begin.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the July 15, 2020 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the
present, and let the record show that President Carter and General Counsel Karen Simons have also joined this meeting. Director Silva, you may proceed to agenda item number 2.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of June 10, 2020. Will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes. Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Alvarez Rosales.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The minutes are approved with 7 yes votes. Director Silva, you may proceed to agenda item number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I want to give you a rundown of May results. May is also the first full month of rear door boarding. For May revenues, Farebox was down to budget by $28 million. Passes were down due to budget spread by almost $16 million. And overall, fare and pass totals were down $44 million or 89%. Again, driven by the fact that we had the first full month of rear door boarding. Reduced fare subsidy was at budget. I'm also excited to announce that we just received the final installment from the state of $2 million. So we now have the entire $14.6 million allocation already for this year. We typically receive that final allocation in August or September, so we received it a little bit ahead of schedule. Non-Farebox totals were down $3.5 million due to the COVID impacts on our advertising, parking, and concession revenues. And total revenues were down $47.5 million, which compares to the $43 million last month. But again, it was a full month of rear door boarding. Free rides were up $1.3 million due to the same effect. Year-to-date revenues, we see the vectors relatively the same across the categories, and we see year-to-date total revenues down by $110.6 million to budget. With regard to May expenses, we see those favorable in aggregate by $4.5 million. We see labor down slightly, but to budget by about $700,000 due to COVID-related costs, including higher fringe and overtime costs, but offset partially by the higher than expected position salvage. Materials were essentially flat, while down $9,000, primarily due to COVID-related cleaning costs and supplies. And then fuel was favorable to budget by about $750,000 due to lower spot pricing and consumption. And then a similar impact on power, which was also positive by about $750,000. Injuries and damages and security services were essentially flat to budget. And other expenses were favorable by about $3.6 million with contract controls. March totals were favorable by $4.5 million, and net against revenues, we were down $43 million which was offset by the federal CARES funding, which has proven to be a critical lifeline to offset lower than expected revenues, and also they cover any additional COVID-related expenses. On a year-to-date basis, vectors again remain relatively the same across the categories. We see total expenses favorable by $8.5 million, which help offset the shortfall that we see on system-generated revenues. So we have a net against revenues where we're down $102 million. Again, to put that into context, we received $817 million of federal CARES funding, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Public funding for the month was down $15 million, and on a year-to-date basis, we're down $30 million. Sales tax was down $8 million for March. Sales tax for April, which should be received in the coming days, will give us a better insight into the larger effect of the pandemic and the related stay-at-home orders. On a year-to-date basis, we're down $11 million with regard to sales taxes. PTF was down about $4 million for the month and $6.5 million on a year-to-date basis. RET was down about $2 million for the month and almost $11 million on a year-to-date basis. And PTF on RET was down about $500,000 for the month and about $2 million on a year-to-date basis. Again, the CARES funding has proven to be very successful on offsetting the lower than expected revenues. We see that the CTA has drawn down approximately $120 million of the $817 million federal CARES funding so far. This represents about 15% of the total. We will also be bringing to the board in August an amendment to the 2020 budget that will add in the CARES funding that we expect to use for the 2020 calendar year as part of the budget amendment. But again, that federal funding stream from the CARES funding helps us offset the lower than expected revenues and as I said, with regard to any additional cleaning costs or anything with regard to expenses from COVID. With regard to the commodities that we purchased, we were able to lock in an additional 15% of fuel need for 2022 at a very low rate of $1.85. We'll be looking to buy outer year allotments after we complete an RFP this fall and winter for both fuel and natural gas. This concludes my report, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
Yes, Jeremy, the applying of the code of conduct will reduce the capacity, of train and buses. Is that something, that we're taking into an account, for the future?
Yeah, so I'd ask Mike Conley to give some input with regard to overall ridership, and I can comment on revenues.
Yeah, and basically, is the capacity, gonna be lower, than it was, and how that is going to affect, the results?
Sure.
So this is Mike Conley, the Chief Planning Officer. Yes, certainly, Director. Just as you've pointed out, the load factors that we're using on our rail and bus system right now allow for social distancing and do lower the total capacity of the system. Given the current ridership levels, we're not seeing any problems with that, particularly as we move into the early stages here of Phase 3 into Phase 4 here in Chicago.
So we can live with it, I mean.
Yes, we certainly can. The lower ridership levels allow for us to continue operating the service that we're operating, our full service, with the social distancing that allows for spacing on the buses and on the trains. Our total system ridership for the month of May is down 77%. Bus is down 67%, and rail is down by 88%. And those ridership levels are what allow us to maintain that adequate social distancing on all the buses and trains.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, before you go on, this is Dorval.
Okay.
I just want to clarify some staff response to Director Silva's question. As I understood it, Director Silva, you were really trying to understand how does our lower capacity impact our anticipated revenues for the rest of the year relative to our budget. And I think what we're really saying is that we anticipate our revenues to remain well below budget for the entire year. We don't anticipate under any scenario of the cities and the states opening of the city itself that there's a scenario that would have CTA at a point where we are allowed to start carrying, for lack of a better word, crush loads without fear of social distancing. And so the trends that you're seeing now or that we will start to see, as Jeremy pointed out, from this month going forward, are going to reflect the capacity limitations that are in place, as well as the lower ridership that we know is going to remain at some level throughout the entire year. While we're seeing increases in our ridership since the city went into phase 4, it has been a very gradual increase, and it is nowhere near anything close to what we would normally anticipate carrying. And I think that's the point that Mike Connolly was making, which is why the capacity limits themselves have not created a major issue for us. But I don't have any expectation that any of that's going to change over the course of the year. And so as we're monitoring our revenue against budget, you will continue to see us underperform under that particular line item, through this entire year. Obviously, for next year, we will be adjusting our budget to reflect the implications of revenue and ridership loss, consistent with the RTA marks that they will give us later on this year. But for now, what you're going to see is a underperformance of that particular budget line item.
And those will, this is Jeremy Fine again, and those will be incorporated into the 2020 amendment. As I mentioned, we'll be presenting that next month. And as Dorval indicated, that will be incorporated in the 2021 budget that will come later this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions, Chairman Silva?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're finished. Okay. Director Peterson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple of questions. Dorval, and this could be for Dorval and Mike. Just to kind of follow up, I think Mike stated that right now, in the month of May, we're at about 77% ridership being down. Just thinking, out loudly with the capacity limitations, what would we consider an acceptable 50%, percentage of ridership, both on the bus and train, in light of the capacity and social distancing we're trying to see? So if it moves from ridership down from 77% to 50% or 40%, do we have an idea of what that percentage would look like as ridership starts to come back, but also understanding that as we try to comply with social distancing and all of that, what that percentage will look like?
So Terry, I think that let me respond, and Mike can maybe put more detail to this. I think the issue for CTA is not just overall ridership, but it's when the ridership is occurring. So it's not even at 70, even at a diminishment of 77%, we still have challenges, anecdotally and periodically during certain points of the day, based on the way people use the system. That's one of the reasons why we have been encouraging our customers to spread their trips throughout the day and not just ride in the morning or afternoon. And it's one of the reasons why we created things like the ridership tool to allow our customers to have a better understanding of when you're likely to find the system more crowded, versus there being extra capacity. While we're at, ridership is gradually increased, given the capacity constraints that we have in place, we're starting to get close to what that capacity would be. But like I said, it to me is not a question of how many people we're carrying. It's more of a question of when we're carrying them. That is the bigger challenge for CTA.
Okay, that makes sense. You're absolutely right. And this is a Jeremy question. One, in light of the fact that, as you said, this is sort of going to be the new normal, probably for the rest of the year, because as Dorval stated as well, we're probably not going to be able to get into stage 5 where, the city is open back up and everything is back to normal. The question I have for you, Jeremy, I know the Senate is back next week, and I think everyone is believing that there's going to be another CARE Act funding round or piece of legislation. Do we have any insight into if there's additional transit funding being considered? And my reason for that, I think we've talked at the last board meeting or so that we thought with the $800 million that could get us through the end of the year with the revenue losses and some of the COVID expenses. And so it could get us through the end of December, maybe into the first quarter of 2021. But do we have any intel about additional transit funding maybe being considered for this next piece of legislation?
So Mr. Chairman, I'll respond to that because I'm actually more involved with that issue than Jeremy is. And the answer, I think the short answer to your question is we are optimistic that there will be another tranche of emergency relief funding. In fact, just yesterday afternoon, I signed on to a letter that was sent by a number of transit agencies to Congress, and particularly to the Senate, reemphasizing the fact that while the CARES Act provided around $25 billion worth of emergency relief funding to the industry, that there is a desperate need for additional funding in order to keep the industry from really hitting a wall. And it was estimated in the letter that I just signed that need for additional funding to get us through the rest of next year is somewhere in the range of $32 billion. So we're continuing to press for that. I also know that APTA, our industry group, is also pressing for the same thing. Certainly the House has passed a fairly robust HEROES Act bill. The Senate still has yet to take up any action on that. And, the intel that I'm hearing is that there is going to be discussion about that when the Senate comes back into session. But as you know, Terry, and as the rest of the board understands, predicting what Congress will or will not do is a very risky proposition. We continue to forcefully make the case that the money that we received, it will not be enough to get us through this crisis, and that there needs to be some additional federal funding provided to allow us to basically maintain the service levels at the fares that we've established them going forward. And without it, then we would be having a very difficult conversation about transit in the city of Chicago, just like every other transit agency will face next year.
So, Dorval, just to follow up to that, I don't expect the Senate bill to mirror what passed out of the House, that $3 trillion bill. Did the House bill that passed have any transit money in it?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Okay.
I can get you the exact number. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I know Mitch McConnell has said that, it's not, whatever they pass won't be a $3 trillion bill. But
right.
As you know, both of these bills will end up in conference. And while, nobody might get a full loaf of bread, they might get half. So I was just wondering, what was the dollar amount that maybe the House had included in this bill that could be negotiated in conference, some part of it. Again, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, no, there is funding identified in the House bill for transit. What ultimately happens one way or another, I think, is anyone's guess. I agree with you that in conference they would reach some sort of compromise. The question of how big the Senate bill will ultimately be is also still, I think, a point of conversation. I will remind everyone that when the CARES Act was first being discussed, the expectations was that it would be a multi-billion-dollar bill, and it ended up being $3 trillion. So, I think a lot depends on a lot of other factors that are going to influence how the Senate perceives the need going forward, which is one of the reasons why it's been really important for us to put a marker down with the Senate about our ongoing needs, which we have done. And I also know that the city and the state are doing the same thing as it relates to city and state relief. So, we're all going to have to wait and see how this plays out over the next month or so. But clearly, everyone's making the point that unless the federal government, steps up and provides additional revenue or subsidy to local governments, then there will be a lot of challenges going forward.
No, Dorval, you're right, because one of the things that I was just thinking about was the fact that probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, you didn't have the implosion of cases now in the South that you got. So while you're right, while the Senate might have said a month ago that that bill would not, amount to $3 trillion, that was prior to what you're seeing happen in Florida, Texas, Alabama, Idaho, and some of these other states. So you're absolutely right. This thing is changing. And then this morning, I only know this morning, 81% of individuals interviewed said that they would love to see another round of checks that would go out to individuals who have lost their jobs, have been laid off, sort of the PPP money. So you're absolutely right. This thing could change just based upon what's happening. Greg, I have no additional questions.
Terry, just to close the loop on you, the number in the House bill for transit was $15 billion.
Okay, got it. And you thought you needed $32 billion?
Yeah.
Okay.
The numbers, obviously, as we're all starting to see how we spend the money, that's impacting the conversation. But there's been a discussion now about a number around $32 billion. I believe AFTA put out a number in the mid to upper 20 billions during the House conversation. So as you can see, it's become somewhat of a moving target as we all start to understand both how much money was allocated to each individual agency and how quickly we're going to be able to spend it.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed then. Director Alvarez, any questions?
No further questions, no.
Director Miller.
Yes, Jeremy, you was saying that May, the first full month of the backdoor entrance, and you were saying that was part of the deficit.
That's correct. Yeah, so we saw that manifest itself to a large degree in the April results, but May was the first full month of rear door boarding.
Okay. Okay, so the continual month, how do we see that playing out? Would it be?
We're still closing the books for June. But, you would expect a similar type of result, for June numbers.
Okay. Thank you, Ray.
Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions, thanks.
Chairman Silver, since there are no further questions, you may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a short-term extension of 2 lease agreements with Clear Channel Outdoor, Inc. for the operation and maintenance of billboards on Chicago Transit Authority property. Jeremy.
Thank you, and good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'm also joined by Stina Fish. Today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing an up to 5-month extension of 2 lease agreements with Clear Channel Outdoor. CTA is in the process of soliciting responses to an RFP for billboard operations on our property. This extension to the existing Clear Channel agreements gives us time to complete the RFP and negotiation process while continuing to generate revenue from the existing billboards. Clear Channel currently operates 24 billboard structures with 34 display faces on CTA property. the billboards are divided into 2 contracts based on the value of the locations. Lease number 1 covers 11 outdoor advertising structures consisting of 21 billboard faces, and lease number 2 covers 13 individual billboard structures with 13 faces. CTA has generated an average of just under $900,000 annually from these locations over the life of the contract. The existing lease agreements commenced on August 1st, 2010 and expire on July 31st, 2020. This ordinance will extend the expiration dates and allow for them to renew on a month-to-month basis from August 1st, 2020 until December 31st, 2020, a maximum of 5 months. CTA may choose to stop the monthly renewal with 30 days notice if we have a new contract ready before December 31st. During the extension period, Clear Channel will continue to pay the same percentage of revenue required by the lease agreements, which is 32.5% for lease 1 and 58.5% for lease 2, but the minimum rent guarantee would not apply. All other terms of the agreements shall remain in full force and effect, and staff estimates that CTA would receive approximately $363,000 in new revenue during the 5-month extension, subject to changing economic conditions. I'm glad to answer any questions about this extension, and then the actual new contract would come to the board under future month.
Thank you, Jeremy. Chairman Silva, any questions?
Are we doing an RFP in this?
Yes.
For this? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So, excellent question. Obviously, the market right now in economic conditions, are not kind of optimal. That being said, we are going to go out. There's a little bit of stabilization in the overall COVID situation here, at least in Illinois. So we think it's beneficial to at least go out, test the market, get the bids back in. We may have to come back to the board, if the bids are less than optimal. But you run the risk of delaying this too much longer, and if there's a second big COVID outbreak in the fall and winter, the numbers could be impacted by that as well. The other thing to keep in mind is that this is a long-term contract. So while impacts from a COVID outbreak for the next X number of months may have a short-term effect. Again, these are long-term contracts, and the vendors would be looking out years into the future, as well as just the near-term impact. So, again, we're just going to test the market, see what kind of bids we get back, and we may have to revisit if they're not what we're hoping for.
Good, thank you.
Director Peterson, any questions?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
There are no further questions, Chairman Silva, on this item.
Thank you. Our next order of business.
Chairman Silva, there's no further questions, but we need to leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval.
Okay. If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved. This is Kevin.
Director Jakes, second.
Chairman Silva, we may now, the item was moved and seconded, so we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a 5-year payment agreement with Northwestern University for bus route 201 Central Reach. Mike Connolly.
Good morning. This is Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. The ordinance that's before you today would authorize a 5-year agreement with Northwestern University for payment of fares on the bus route number 201 Central Ridge. This agreement will compensate CTA for the fares of university-designated individuals using this bus route. It is a regular public CTA route with a published schedule. Under this new agreement, CTA will issue Ventra cards to the university that charge a regular fare on all other CTA services, but are pre-programmed to provide rides on the 201 without registering an initial fare. The rides made on Route 201 with these cards will be tracked in the Ventra system, and the university will reimburse CTA based on the regular fare structure for all of these fares and all of these taps that are made on the 201 by university-affiliated riders. The Ventra cards are also able to be used as any other Ventra card on all other CTA or PACE services, and will be registering a regular fare for all of those trips. Upon board approval, this new agreement will be effective September 1st, 2020, and will remain in effect through August 31st, 2025. This agreement continues CTA's partnership with the university to serve university and community mobility needs, and it encourages ridership not only on the 201, but on the entire CTA system. This partnership has been in place since 2015. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions which you have.
Thank you, Mike. Director Silva?
Is that the same one that we used to have with the University of Chicago?
It is different than the arrangement with the University of Chicago in that it's tied to just one single route, the 201 that operates in the Evanston area.
Okay, thank you.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
There are no further questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
This is Kevin. No, so moved.
Director Jakes, second.
The motion has been moved and seconded, Chairman Silva, so we may proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2020-2021. Steve, good morning. Steve Wood.
Good morning. This is Steve Wood, Deputy General Counsel in the CTA's Law Department. This is an ordinance authorizing the 2020 to 2021 property insurance policy. The policy runs from July to July and is renewed every year. Our insurance broker at Mesero Alliant and our DBE Paradigm marketed the renewal to both the domestic and international insurance markets, and a consortium of international and domestic providers provided the best combination of coverage and price. The proposed premium for next year's policy, along with taxes and fees, is approximately $4,687,323, which is an increase of about 21% from this year's rate. Rate increases are typically based on increases in asset value, claim history of the insured, and the state of the insurance market. The CTA's asset values were essentially flat, raising less than 1% from $7.157 billion to $7.22 billion, and the CTA had another clean year of claims, but the market for rail insurance was hardening due to catastrophic losses related to wildfires and storms. And then the addition of COVID-19 pandemic has introduced substantial uncertainty in the market, causing some insurers to withdraw capacity and limit their exposure. To offset the initial proposed increase, which was a 38% increase, we agreed to adjust our deductible levels on primary claims from $250,000 to $1 million. And that increase actually aligns us with more standard deductibles in the industry rather than the lower deductibles we had been enjoying. We believe that the proposed program is in the best interest of the authority, and we recommend renewal with this consortium for the 2020 to 2021 policy year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Peterson?
Yeah, more of a comment, Steve. That's a huge increase, 21%. And what's interesting, I think you noted that, our asset value only went up around 1%. But as I just kind of read through the explanation of why it was 30-some%, you eventually went from a $250,000 deductible to a $1 million deductible. But it seems as though, too, a lot of this stuff in terms of the increase is not things that we can control when you talk about COVID, fire, storms. I just, I don't even know how you budget for this every year in terms of, Jeremy, do you put in a 5% escalator, escalation cost of 10%? Because, I don't think anyone ever imagines that you're going to have something that's going to go up over 20% annually. It would be different if we were saying this was over a 2-3 year period. That's a huge increase annually. I just think I would be interested. I don't know if it's going to get any better next year, but again, I just wanted to raise that point that I thought that increase was, I don't know if we've ever had one, Steve. I know you've been doing this for a while, but have we ever seen an increase on an annual basis that large, that high?
No, this is the first time we've ever had an increase in the range of 20%. 10, 12% have been some of our higher years in prior policies. But, the insurance market is a risk transfer, and I think we'd all agree that the level of risk in the economy and in the market is huge, and many insurers are simply not interested or capable of providing capacity. And so with fewer participants in the market, the prices do go up.
Yep. Yeah, I know we're experiencing the same thing in healthcare. Okay, thanks, Steve.
Director Alvarez-Alias.
Yeah, I guess my only question was going to be, I'm assuming we're seeing this across the board with other transit systems, that they're getting the same types of increases.
I can say anecdotally that's true. We do plan later this year to survey the other transit agencies to find out where we landed and to have more ammunition for negotiating prices next year.
Okay, thank you.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. There are no further questions on this item, Mr. Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have Liz to place this item in the ordinance for board approval?
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jakes, second.
That motion has been moved and seconded. Chairman Silva, let the record show that Ellen McCormick and Juan Pablo Prieto are now joining the proceedings. And Chairman Silva, we may proceed to contract number B as in boy 1.
Our next order of business is contract B1, property management services for various CTA properties.
Any questions, Chairman Silva, on this item?
No questions.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Alias?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
Excuse me, Greg, this is Herb. I think Director Irvine just dropped off.
Okay, then we'll wait. Tell me when he's back on.
Director Irvine is back in the session, Greg.
Thank you. Director Irvine, you had no questions, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. And Juan Pablo's in, Ellen's in, and we're at B2. Director Silva, proceed with B2.
Our next order of business is contract B2, a change order for package delivery services.
Chairman Silva, any questions on this item?
No questions.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Alias?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman Silva, there are no further questions on this item, so you may proceed to contract D as in dog 1.
Our next order of business is contract D1, Transit Supported Development Comprehensive Plan for the Red Line Extension Project.
Any questions on this, Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Director Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
None.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Since there are no further questions, Chairman Silva, you may proceed to contract G as in girl 1.
Our final order of business is contract G1, a contract for technology support service.
Chairman Silva, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Chairman Peterson?
No questions.
Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
There are no further questions on this item, Chairman Silver. Thus, there are no further items for consideration by the committee.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
No, not yet, Chairman. Go back to, we need a motion on the contracts, right?
Okay.
The row right below G1.
Okay, let me see the committee.
Since we have no further questions on contracts, Director Silva, we need leave to place contracts B as in boy 1, B as in boy 2, and D as in dog 1 on the omnibus for board approval.
Since there is no further business to come before the
Chairman, so I apologize. I think I confused you when I said there was no further items for consideration. I apologize. I phrased that incorrectly because it sounded like there was no further business before the committee. So if we can just have a motion on the omnibus in a second, then we should be all set. So Director Irvine, do you want to move that motion?
Yes, I move it.
Okay,
so moved.
Okay, so the motion has been moved and seconded on the omnibus. I'm sorry, I might be confused. That was leave to place those contracts on the omnibuses. Let me get this straight. So let's do that again. Can we have leave to place those 3 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
Yes.
Yes.
So moved. This is Kevin.
Okay, so moved by Director Irvine.
Seconded, Jakes.
Seconded by Director Jakes. So Chairman Silva, now there's no further business to come before the committee, but we do now need that roll call vote on we need a motion for the omnibus.
Okay.
This is Kevin. Do I move?
So, why don't I just say it? Since there's no further business to come before the committee, let's have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval.
This is Kevin. So moved.
So moved.
Bernard Jakes, second.
And Director Jakes seconds it. This is the motion to approve the omnibus. I'm going to take a roll call vote right now. Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 7 yes votes. So now, Chairman Silva, we need a motion regarding G1.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
No, not yet. We're almost there. We just need a motion that's why I knew this was going to get complicated with G1 being pulled out. We need a motion to recommend board approval for contract G as in girl 1.
Right, okay.
I can make that motion.
Final order of business is a contract G1, a contract for technology support services.
Right. So we just need a motion to approve and to second that.
Yes.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
Thank you. So the motion to approve contract G as in girl 1 has been moved and seconded. I'm now going to take a roll call vote. Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
I'll abstain.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Alvarez-Rosales. Now we're ready to move to agenda item number 8, Chairman Silva.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
That motion has been moved and seconded. Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion to adjourn has been approved with 7 yes votes, and we'll start up the board meeting in approximately 1 minute. Thank you. Good morning. This is Greg Longini again. Let me get my papers organized here. Chairman Pearson, we can begin the board meeting, I believe.
All right, Greg, I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for July 15th, 2020. Would the secretary call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Present.
Director Silva.
Yes, present.
Director Miller.
Present.
Director Jakes.
Present.
Director Chevrolet.
Present.
Director Irvine.
Right here.
Chairman Pearson.
Present.
We have the full quorum of all 7 members of the board present, and let the record show that President Dorval Carter and General Counsel Karen Simons are also participating in the meeting.
All right.
Oh, excuse me. Hold on, let me say one other thing too, Chairman, and also that Karen and I are currently in the headquarters building, which is required under the Open Meetings Act. Thank you.
Thank you. The first order of business is public comment. Greg?
No, sir, there are none this month.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is the approval of the June 10th, 2020 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. I now entertain a motion, or I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 10th, 2020.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
Moved and seconded. For the minutes, Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
The minutes are approved with 7 yes votes, sir.
Thanks, Greg. Next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding that we're having executive session today.
Karen Simons, General Counsel. Yes, Chairman. We will have an executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, Subparagraph 6 and 11 of the Open Meetings Act.
All right. Thanks, Karen. I now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for the reasons stated by counsel.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. I'll now take a vote. Director Alvarez-Rosales,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Chevrolet,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion passes with 7 yes votes, so we are now in recess. So we'll just take a few seconds here, and then executive session will begin. Thank you.
All right.
Greg, I'll need about 30.
Question?
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
That motion has been moved and seconded. Director Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes, so we are now back in open session, Chairman.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is board item number 4A. Karen?
Karen Steinmetz, General Counsel. Agenda item 4A is the recommendation of Infrastructure and the Law Department for the board to approve the acquisition of a property at 2019 West North Avenue, which is owned by 2100 North Corp. Inc. It is 900 feet of unimproved land adjacent to a CTA parking lot, and it is needed for a new substation adjacent to the Damon Blue Line, which is part of the rebuild known as the Your New Blue project. It is recommended to be acquired.
All right, thank you, Karen. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance designating for acquisition property located at 2019 West North Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, for a substation for a Your New Blue project.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
Moved and seconded. Director Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes, sir.
Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business is board item number 4B. Karen?
Thank you, Chairman. Item 4B is a recommendation of the Infrastructure and Law Departments to acquire 2 vacant, unimproved parcels located immediately adjacent to CTA's West Shops. One property is located at 260 North Harding and is owned by Austin Bank of Chicago Trust number 7547, and the other property is 3940 West Maypole, owned by REO Distribution LLC. Acquisition will allow these properties to have a more usable and contiguous land space for the current and future needs of West Shops, as well as allow for greater security of the West Shops facilities. For these reasons, purchase is recommended, or eminent domain.
Thanks, Karen. I now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance designating for acquisitions property located at 260 North Harding and 3940 West Maypole Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, adjacent to the authority's West Shop facility.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
Moved and seconded. Take a roll call vote. Director Alvarez-Alias.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion has been approved with 7 yes votes, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is board agenda item number 5. Chief Safety and Security Officer Ron Esther will make the presentation. Ron?
Thank you. Good morning. Ronald Esther, Chief Safety Security Officer. This ordinance is to amend the Passenger Code of Conduct to address the COVID-19 pandemic by requiring facial coverings on CTA property, in line with the requirements in the Governor's Executive Order and the Order of the Commissioner of Health of the City of Chicago. This requirement would apply not just on CTA vehicles, but on all CTA property, whether indoors or outdoors, and would require that individuals over the age of 2 who are able to medically tolerate facial coverings over their mouths and noses wear such coverings at all times while on CTA property. The requirement will be repealed automatically once both the state and city repeal their requirements. Staff recommends approval to the changes to the rule of conduct to require facial coverings on CTA property. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ron?
Who is going to supervise, that they do it?
As far as the enforcement, it's really through messaging and education. It's to alert our riding public or the customers as to how to have a healthy, safe public transit travel.
Any additional questions?
No,
this is Kevin. This is Kevin. I'm just curious how this may, if a passenger tries to board a bus and they're not wearing a face covering, and they say that they can't wear one for medical reasons, then just there will be no conflict. It'll just be like saying, okay, given the benefit of the doubt, or how would that be handled?
Director Irvine, it's not our intention to become the mask police or to have our employees become the mask police. If someone informs us that they can't wear it because of a medical reason, we're not going to ask for proof of medical documentation or anything like that. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is obviously reinforce the messaging that we're doing to all of our customers that wearing a mask is important not only for their safety but for the safety of our fellow customers and employees. And obviously adding this to our code of conduct is intended to amplify that message even more. I think that as is the case with all public agencies, we hope that through education and through messaging, our customers will abide by our code of conduct and comply with our requirements as requested.
This is Kevin again. Thank you, President Carter. So let's say that a passenger who's wearing a mask is having a problem with a passenger not wearing a mask, and they go to the CTA bus operator about that. What would you expect bus personnel to do in that case?
The bus personnel obviously are expected to mirror the messaging that we're doing for all of our customers in particular. We're not going to get in the business of throwing people off of CTA. That's the question you're asking, because of their compliant or non-compliance with this requirement. It will work no differently than any other of our code of conduct requirements, be it eating on CTA or playing a radio loudly or anything like that. If a customer informs the CTA employee of behavior inconsistent with our code of conduct, that employee is expected to address it like they would any other code of conduct violation, which basically involves informing the customer of the requirement and asking that they comply.
Thank you, President Carter. No more questions.
Any additional questions?
I have a question, Chairman. This is Arabelle. Who is working on the messaging for this?
We have actually been messaging on this, Commissioner Rosales, since the state order was put in place in May.
Right.
There's signage up right now. There's digital signage. There are audio messages around this. There's material that we have provided to employers and employees. It's also been part of the courtesy pack that we've been passing out to our customers that actually includes a mask and hand sanitizer. There's a postcard that's in there that also messages on this. So it's been part of an overall campaign that we have been implementing and will continue to implement and amplify as we continue to move forward with the pandemic.
The reason I ask is I know the city's been working with a number of different organizations, non-for-profits, that have come up with some really creative messaging, especially around the whole masks. And it might be an opportunity for us to take a look at that and then incorporate it, on some of our signage. So
we have been in partnership with the city on a lot of messaging around this. Molly Poppy, who has been leading the team of the handling the transition for under the coronavirus for our customer interaction, I know is in conversation with a lot of city departments. So I'll make sure that we have her follow up on your particular issue and make sure that we're leveraging whatever messaging that they may be pursuing on CTA as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ron?
Yes, this is just a quick question for Ron. This is Bernard Jakes. Based upon what the information you have, does it seem as if most of the riders are complying with the mask ordinance or the executive order?
Anecdotally, I would have to say yes. We have had some complaints about customers not wearing masks, but for the most part, they are compliant.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like it's just you will have that small group that won't, but if the larger group will, then because I've been seeing the messaging and the messaging seems fine. I hope we don't get into kind of over messaging because it is what it is, and hopefully everyone knows what it is. So I think you all are doing a great job with the messaging.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Ron? Okay, hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance supplementing ordinance number 016-100, which amends ordinance number 006-75 regarding rules of conduct to require facial covering on the Chicago Transit Authority property.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jakes, second.
Moved and seconded. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes, sir.
Thank you. Say, Ron, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I don't want to wait till new business to just say this to you. I know some of the other board members might know. I know this is your last board meeting. I wanted to just tell you it has been an honor working with you since you've been there. I also wanted to congratulate you on retirement. And when I think about retirement, it's not that you're going to stop working or doing something. It's just you won't have to come in there and put in your 12 hours a day at CTA. So I just wanted to congratulate you and tell you it's been truly an honor to work with you.
Thank you, Chairman. And it has been an amazing almost 3 decades here at the Chicago Transit Authority. I've met some incredible people and worked with some incredible people. So thank you.
I think I saw something said you've been there 30-some years. I said, well, whatever you're doing, it must have been good because you don't look like you've been there 34 years.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I know Dorval's got something to say a little later, but I wanted to get that in and take a moment to just really, like I said, thank you for a job well done and just wish you much success in the next endeavor, the next chapter of your life.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I can go ahead and say a few words right now, if you don't mind.
That's great. Okay.
I also wanted to acknowledge and thank you for what you had to say. I also wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work that Ron Nestor has done for CTA and the contributions he's made to our agency. Ron has, over 28 years worth of experience at CTA and worked his way up the ranks of CTA that period of time. And I certainly have gotten to know him during, a couple of months here during my tenure at CTA. But I also want to just acknowledge and thank Ron for what he has done for me personally during my tenure as president of CTA. Ron, to use a baseball term, Ron has been a utility player for me. I have asked him to assume a number of different roles during the time that I have been here, including, running the control center, heading up rail operations, being my deputy chief for safety and security, and now my chief of safety and security, all of which Ron took on with the passion and dedication and commitment that I've seen him perform all of his jobs here at CTA. And I don't have any doubt that CTA is a better place because of Ron's leadership and commitment to our agency. And I personally just want to thank you, Ron, for your commitment to me and for the help that you have given me over the time that I've been president and supporting me in the mission of CTA itself. So I wish you all the best in your retirement. For those of you at the board who don't know, Ron's wife, Geisha, is also an employee here at CTA. For whatever reason, Geisha isn't planning to retire yet, but will continue working with us, and I'm thrilled about that as well because Geisha heads up our training department here at CTA. But the Esther family, I think it's safe to say, has been a major contributor to CTA over the years. And Ron, I will miss you personally, my man, and thank you so much for all you've done for CTA.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and it's heartfelt. And the Chicago Transit Authority will always have, as you just mentioned, a place deep in the heart of the Esther family. But thank you, President Carter. I appreciate it.
All right. So I think we took a vote. Yeah, we did take a vote on the ordinance. So the next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via teleconference. The committee approved June 10, 2020 minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following three ordinances. An ordinance authorizing a short-term extension of 2 lease agreements with Clear Channel Outdoor Inc. for the operation and maintenance of billboards on Chicago Transit Authority property. An ordinance authorizing a 5-year payment agreement with Northwestern University for bus route 201 Central Reach. An ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2020-2021. The committee also reviewed for purchase and award recommendations. The committee approved all items and recommends board approval of all items. The committee placed 3 ordinance and contract numbers B1, B2, and D1 on the omnibus. Contract number G1 will require a separate vote. That concludes my report, Chairman Peters.
All right. Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
That motion has been moved and seconded, and it includes all items on the finance agenda except for item G1. So this includes everything else. And let me get my list here. 1 second. Director Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus passes with 7 yes votes, sir.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I will now entertain a motion to approve contract number G1, the technical service support contract.
This is Kevin. So moved.
Bernard Jake, second.
That motion for G1 has been moved and seconded. I will now take the vote. Director Alvarez-Rosales.
I will abstain.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion to approve G1 is approved with 6 yes votes, and Ms. Alvarez-Rosales abstained.
Okay, thanks, Greg. The next agenda item is new business. Greg, is there any new business to come before the board?
I'm sorry. I am not aware of any, sir, unless you have some.
No, the only thing I wanted to say, one, I just wanted to tell my former, my directors that I've missed seeing them. After a while back, conference calls, Zooms get kind of old. I would do anything to get back to just having that physical presence and being able to meet. I know the question has come up, when will we be able to have in-person meetings again? And I've been talking with April, and I know she's been talking with Dorval and his team. I'm hoping that August we might be able to do that, but I also watch daily, as I'm sure most of my directors do, the uptick in the number of cases. I think last week we had a couple of days of 1,000 or more new cases. So we will continue to monitor that, but I wanted the directors to know that I'm, like most of you, I'm sure, would love to get back to in-person meetings, and again, just miss seeing you and having an opportunity, even when the board meeting isn't going on, to just, chat a little bit off to the side. So again, just want to thank everybody for their patience and going through this. I think everybody has my cell number, so if there's anything you need or I can do or be helpful in any way, you still don't hesitate to call me on my cell, text me, or call me at work. But those were the only comments I had. I don't know if any of the other directors have anything else that they wanted to bring before the board for the good of the board, but I just wanted to add that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kevin. And I just want to add, I also miss seeing everyone, and I hope we can get back together soon. There was a virtual meeting of the CTA's ADA Advisory Committee on Monday, and I just want to commend President Carter, you and your staff. We have a really good makeup of the ADA Advisory Committee. There are some really good, active, and engaged members, and I thought the meeting was really thorough and detailed and full of good information. And I was just really impressed with all the work that the CTA staff is doing on making sure that CTA is as accessible as it can be for all of our customers. And not just on vertical accessibility. There was an update on the All Stations Accessibility Program, but also talking about some of the things that CTA is doing to make sure that some of our programs and services are accessible to people who are blind or have low vision. And particularly in this month of the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which we're celebrating all month, but it falls on July 26th. It was just a really positive experience to listen in on the ADA Advisory Committee and hear what both the volunteers, the community volunteers who serve on the committee, but also all the CTA staff are doing to work so hard to make sure that as much of CTA as possible is as accessible as it can be for everyone. And so just, a lot of kudos to President Carter, you and your whole team on the work that you're doing. And I'm really excited to see what CTA is going to be doing in the years ahead, and as we work to become even more accessible. So that's all. Just a shout out. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Irvine. This is Dorval Carter. I certainly appreciate your comments, and I know my staff who all work very hard to address accessibility issues appreciate your taking a moment to acknowledge the work that they do. I would also echo the comments that Chairman Peterson made about the board meetings themselves. I miss seeing all of you as well, face to face, and certainly look forward to the day in which we're able to actually meet again face to face. We are monitoring, obviously, very closely the situation with the virus here in Chicago and the impact that it's having on public gatherings, while also working with our staff to discuss, when we do get to a point that we can have face-to-face meetings, how do we do that safely and maintain the appropriate social distancing requirements and the public input engagement process that comes from a public meeting. So I want you to know that we are working on that. We are looking at adjustments we may have to make to the way our board meeting could physically be carried out in anticipation of a point in time when we will be able to come back together, hopefully, and with the virus cooperating at some point in time, that will happen sooner rather than later.
All right. Thanks, Dorval.
Chairman Peterson, this is Bernard Jakes. I want to just take a couple of seconds to first co-sign what Kevin said earlier as it relates to our president and and others doing a great job. But I want to make sure that I speak as far as Herb is concerned. I have no idea who Herb is, but Herb has done a fabulous job keeping us connected through these virtual meetings. And also want to lift up Greg and Adrian Brown, specifically for hearing the concerns that I had last month about making it easier for us to have our briefings and putting the board book together so it flows nicely as we gather together virtually. So I just wanted to say kudos to them as well, because they've made it much easier for us to make the adjustments during these uncertain times. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
This is Arabelle. I just thank you to everybody, and I miss everybody as well. I know it's so much easier, to be honest with you, to see everybody's response and when we're face-to-face. But I also have to tell you, yesterday and a couple of the other times that we've had our briefings, I am so happy to be part of this team, because it is a really great team. We've kept the city moving forward, and it's such a vital part of the city being able to continue to work. So please thank everybody on the team, President Carville, that just thank them from the bottom of my heart, because I know it's very difficult to do. I also know we talk about all the PPE that people have to wear now and everything, and I hope that they understand that we understand that it's not easy, because we're actually transforming people's habits, and that's a very difficult thing to do, and everybody's doing such an incredible job. So thank you to everybody, and I miss everybody. Looking forward to us being able to meet again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Director Miller here. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I say ditto to all that's already been said. We're making the adjustment, and I'm glad to be part of the team, but certainly missing everybody. And, we're having the same situation all the way around church and everywhere. We're in something that we've never been in before. But I want to thank the CTA team at large for the way that it's working, still moving the city, still doing a great job. Commend everybody and missing everybody on the board. Thanks.
I miss you all.
I miss all of you. This is Chevrolet. I miss seeing all of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys. And like I said, I just can't thank you enough. And I didn't want this meeting to end without saying that. And again, we'll see how things progress over the next couple of weeks and everything. With no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. This is Kevin.
Second, Bernard Jakes.
Moved and seconded. The final roll call vote. Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Absolutely.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion to adjourn passes with 7 yes votes, sir.
All right. Thanks, Greg. We are adjourned. Everyone have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.